Welcome to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. Like any good marriage, we will debate, evaluate, and sometimes quarrel about how privacy and security impact business in the 21st century.
Hi, Jody Daniels here. I'm the founder and CEO of Red Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and certified informational privacy professional, providing practical privacy advice to overwhelmed companies.
Hello, Justin Daniels here. I am a corporate M&A and tech transaction partner at the law firm Baker Donaldson. I am passionate about helping companies solve complex cyber and privacy challenges during the life cycle of their business. I am the cyber quarterback helping clients design and implement cyber plans, as well as help them manage and recover from data breaches. I'm not allowed to be lighthearted about those two words.
It's true. Much better tone. This episode is brought to you by Red Clover Advisors. Oh, we forgot our drum roll. It's totally a Monday here. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, e-commerce, professional services, and digital media. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we're creating a future where there's greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more and to check out our best-selling book, Data Reimagined, Building Trust One Bite at a Time, visit redcloveradvisors.com. Hello.
What's up?
I don't know. What's up with you?
I don't know. I can see it's Monday and we've already had some foibles from you.
Almost every call I've had this morning, everyone is feeling it's a total a case of the Mondays.
Alrighty then. Well, let's pucker up and let's get after it.
Oh, I like it. Fun use of words. Okay. Well, today I'm really excited because we have Noga Rosenthal, who is the General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer at Ampersand. And she is a seasoned privacy and data ethics professional with a diverse background in the technology sector. With over 15 years of experience, she has established herself as a global privacy compliance expert, and she has a number of remarkable contributions. Noga was honored in June 2023 as a recipient of the Ad Monsters and Ad Exchanger Top Women in Media and Ad Tech Awards. And we are so excited that you are here with us today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Justin. I'm excited to be here and honored.
Pucker up. We're having fun. This is where you.
I think the honor is ours.
Oh, the honor is always ours. We love all of our guests. All of our guests are so much fun.
If only my co-host wasn't such a pain. But with that,
I'm going to remember that.
Yes, I know you will. So tell us a little bit about your career and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I was also an M&A attorney. I then went to Sotheby's and did art auction law for 3 years, and then completely pivoted to the technology world, which is where I wanted to be. In that company, I was at 24/7 Real Media, which was a WPP company, which later on spun into Xaxis, which is also a tech company, Adtech company and agency. And at my time there, I started doing just commercial contracts, really general business. But because I was in Adtech, 50% of what I was doing ended up being privacy. We had privacy laws coming after us. We had other companies doing things that made Adtech not look great. We were trying to figure out how to move ahead. How could all of industry move ahead? And we were making up rules as we went along. And I loved it. I loved making up, working together, trying to come up with ethical standards for the industry. And again, so I started 15 years ago. And now that whole world has just, exploded. There's so many more companies than there used to be. We were 7 members of the Network Advertising Initiative, for instance, then. Google was a member, Yahoo. Now there's over 100 members at the Network Advertising Initiative, which is, again, that group that governs third parties. I know this is unsolicited, but what I would say to anybody who's looking to get into privacy, first of all, Adtech is a great place to start because we have so many privacy issues. And 2, you have to be really fearless. And so starting my career there, I just, again, it's not like a heavily regulated field at that time. It was something that we were making up as we went along. So It's a great field to be in for people who don't mind being in the gray. The network advertising initiative then pulled me in to be their VP of policy and compliance. Then I went to Epsilon, which is a data marketing company. So all I did was privacy. And now I'm at Ampersand, which is a media and tech company based here in New York.
I actually also got started in privacy via Adtech. I was stalking people for cars at autotrader.com, trying to encourage you to buy one over the other. And, I've also heard people say if you can understand Adtech and privacy, then, that is an amazing foundation to help you understand the rest of privacy, because it is truly some things are really black and white, but it feels more and more that everything is gray and interpretation and which way is it going to go. Really appreciate the advice that you offered. Now, with that being said, privacy laws are making big waves in the ad tech industry. It is causing all kinds of big questions to be asked. And so I'm curious, from your vantage point, how are you seeing companies evolve to still be able to identify customers, utilize these tools, and be privacy friendly at the same time?
So what I would add to that question is there's not just laws, there's also browsers are making changes. So Chrome, Safari have made changes. So there's so many layers of pressure on the ad tech industry that we need to keep in mind. And so what I see a lot of that I think is really helpful is industry getting together and talking to each other and learning from each other and learning how to, for instance, just be more transparent around what they're doing, their data collection, their use, working together to pass on, yes, I got consent from the consumer, or passing on opt-outs. We all have to work together. And that's what I'm hopeful for the industries, again, working within the Interactive Advertising Bureau, working within NAI to answer some of the pressures that we're seeing under these laws. I think another one is the clean room. So the privacy enhancing technologies is another big area. I think we're going to see a lot more coming out from ad tech that I think will get passed on to other industries. But you're seeing privacy tools built within ad tech that I think, again, could get pushed out elsewhere.
I'm curious, are you seeing companies adopt maybe fewer tools? Are you seeing companies keep the same tools, or are you seeing companies change the tools that they're using?
And tools, you mean privacy tools, or?
Meaning ad tech tools. So if before I had hundreds of companies I might have worked with, nowadays are you finding organizations are still working with many companies, or have they lessened that and said, well, given everything that's happening, I'm only going to pick 20 companies. I'm going to vet them more, and I'm going to do something along those lines?
I think the bigger companies are able to do that. They're able to vet and say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to work with these two companies. I think that's a much bigger struggle for smaller websites, where they may need to have, they may need a bunch of partners to fill the advertising inventory on their site, whereas a bigger website or what we call publisher doesn't need to do that. So I think it's going to depend on the company.
I appreciate you sharing.
So as a chief privacy officer, what have you found to be successful to integrate privacy into the business?
So, we talk about privacy champs all the time. For me, it's definitely having partners within the business. So for instance, my CISO at all my companies has been one of my closest friends. Like that's just the nature of the relationship. When that relationship is broken, you have a problem. But again, my CISO is very close to me. Then also engineering, like I have a right-hand person to explain. Jody said, right, this is such a complicated industry. You need to have somebody who dumbs down the technology for you at times. And then just having people across the various departments. So HR knows we did a training. We explain what privacy laws are coming out. We explain why we need to give our employees notice around their data collection and use. So having everybody help us with compliance is key, because unfortunately in the past I've learned that I'll bring something into compliance with GDPR. I never say 100% compliance, but towards compliance. And literally the next day, somebody brings us out of compliance. So if you don't have the team trained to flag things for you, then that's what's going to keep happening.
You mentioned training. I just delivered a training last week and it was so much fun. People asked good questions. They appreciated it. How often do you find needing to work with the different departments? For example, you mentioned working with HR. Do you have kind of informal meetings? Do you have a formalized training? Do you do that by department? Or have you seen the idea? And you mentioned privacy champs too. So some organizations will have formal people designated as a privacy champion, whether that's part-time or full-time through the organization. And I'm just curious what you have experienced that has been successful.
Sure. So at Epsilon, because we were a bigger company, we did have a formal process. We did have formal people in charge. And Jody, that took me 2 months for just one of my companies to assign people to be the privacy champs. Because what we did initially was we looked to the most senior person to be in charge, and we realized quickly that was a mistake because they had no idea what the nitty-gritty details were. So we had to go a step lower, and that's a hard lesson to learn at times, that people just go to the organizational tree and like, okay, so this is the person. It's not. You have to go do that interview and make sure you know who should be in charge. We also did we did training for everybody, both at Epsilon and Ampersand. We have we had a module at Epsilon, for instance, with Daniel Solov. We licensed his tool. It was great. Here we at Ampersand, we just created our own training that everybody has to take. And then I do more customized training more frequently with my teams that are touching data, making data decisions. Same with HR, we trained everybody. And then we just have one person in charge that knows the details. That's the privacy champ. And then just real quick, sorry, the other thing we also do training for people, and I found this so helpful, around their personal privacy and security. Meaning, how do you keep your bank account secure? What should you do? Changing passwords, things like that, changing passwords frequently. Because what happens then is that translates to keeping our business networks and emails secure as well and private. And so they're able to take those personal learnings and bring them into work.
One of the training providers I love, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time they were giving, if the company signed up, the employees also got access to train their family members for the exact reason you just shared, which is the more that you can help educate and protect the family, then the more they understand privacy and security and they bring it into the workplace. And I love what you said about working with the different teams with some customized training, because for anyone listening, when you do that, the benefit is the HR person or team gets to ask all their special, unique questions, and the marketing people get to ask all theirs, and the product people, and so on and so forth. That's where you really can get for them to understand how this applies to them and their role, and that it's not just the privacy or legal person's job.
I would also add there that, and I know this might sound a little unpopular now when people are hybrid or fully remote, I do think it's important to try to build those relationships in person. Especially in Adtech, what I faced was some of my business people were incredulous, like they couldn't believe where the law was going at the time. And I had to build trust with them. And it's much easier to do that when you're in person and they get to know you. And they get to know the scope of your experience, and you could, bring in, again, benchmarking from outside companies, but doing that in person was key because, again, I think a lot of the changes that we're seeing in ad tech that have such big business impacts, they need to trust you that business impact is in fact happening. And so again, just having that relationship is so key, that trust.
Trust in relationships.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems companies are struggling with how to manage opt-in versus opt-out sale and share requests. What can you share to help companies sort through these complexities? We know one big challenge is just how many opt-out links will end up at the footer of a website.
Yeah, Justin, this is I know the laws are trying to do good, right? Consumers should have the ability to opt out. They should be able to understand what data is being collected and how it's being used. But now I really worry that the laws have gone a little too far and that it's going to be even more confusing for consumers. And so there are a lot of opt-outs. I want to see where companies are going to end up. But there's an opt-out, just a general opt-out for targeted advertising. Then there's an opt-out for sensitive data. My question to you guys is, do you really think somebody opting out for one isn't going to want to opt out for the other?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the average person doesn't know any of them. So I've always struggled with, here's this long list of hundreds of places collecting your data. You know what? I'm only going to pick number 34 and number 52. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They're just gonna pick them all. They don't know.
Yeah. And so just so you know, I mean, again, I feel that, and I think this is the right way of doing it. When we see people opt out, we just opt them out of everything. The problem there is, well, then you're making a decision on behalf of the consumer. Maybe that's not fair, but also what's the business impact? And does that make sense for your company? So that's something really personal that you need to go back and look at. But again, I do worry. I think it is very confusing to consumers. I think the other big thing that's confusing is I'm sitting here right now. I have 3 browsers on my laptop. I have Bing, I have Chrome, I have Firefox. I'd have to go to 3 different browsers to opt out. And I doubt consumers realize that it's just browser centric. So
that's an excellent point.
Yeah. And device, right? Then I have like 4 devices. Each device I have to go opt out. So it's really complicated even for me. So I can't imagine how difficult it is for the typical consumer.
Now, I know a lot of companies are trying to sort through, literally, do I have a link for California? Do I have a link for Colorado? Do I have a link for all these others? I'm just curious, what are you seeing amongst the various companies that you're talking to, and maybe a direction that as a trend people are moving in?
So I have seen the separate privacy policies, the separate opt-outs. Again, I definitely think it's too confusing. I think having one is fine. And you could explain that this applies to, all these states. Again, I would not do a separate privacy policy just for Virginia. I wouldn't do a separate opt-out again just for Virginia. I think it's too confusing.
Well, thank you for sharing. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier was privacy enhancing technologies, or pets. And I presented on this and we had so much fun with pets. We really should have just done a presentation on pets, but we did. And, you also mentioned about data clean rooms. And many companies are like, data clean rooms, it's going to save marketing. It's going to be wonderful. Can you share a little bit about how data clean rooms work? Why are they great? Or maybe why they won't save marketing and we still need to do some other steps?
Okay. So I do think they're great. I think any privacy enhancing technology is wonderful. The idea that you could have your data sitting on your cloud and not have somebody else have access to the user level data, I think is great. I think it's the move in the right direction. From a intellectual property concept, it's also great. This is something that gets mixed up with privacy a lot of times. This idea that if I'm a big website, you're not going to know which of my users are going to get an ad. You don't get to see my users, in other words, right? There's no data leakage. That's not a privacy issue. That's more of a intellectual like that's my consumer. That's my data that I don't want going out. But having said that, I think what I don't like what I'm seeing is people mixing up some of the issues, which is they think this is going to solve the cookie issue. So, right, third-party cookies are going away. People are saying that clean rooms are going to fix that. It's not. It's just not. It's not related to this. I spent hours, Jody, trying to figure out how is this going to fix the cookie issue? And then I realized, people are conflating issues. So it's not going to fix that. Please know that you have to have an identity layer there. Whatever that identity layer is, if it's IP addresses, if it's connecting devices, whatever it is to the consumer based on IPs or another third-party ID, you have to have that backbone still there. So that's a separate issue. The other problem too is that it's going to be siloed data. So you may have a clean room with one website, but not another. So what do you do? How do you get those two if you're running a campaign for, I'm trying not to use company names, but if you're running a campaign with Disney, you're not going to be able to then, that's one clean room, right? Then you're going to have another one with Amazon. Then you're going to have another one with whomever, Discovery. So then you're going to have 3 clean rooms, and you're going to have a new problem now.
Now we're going to have a technology on top of that, that's on top of that, and we're going to end up right back to where we were.
Exactly. So again, it solves for some issues and not others. Again, I vote for any privacy enhancing technologies, but let's see what else comes out in the next year.
Speaking about what comes out in the next year that's already here is we find almost every show now we talk to our guests about your thoughts around AI and privacy and security. So just would love to see your perspective on how your company is thinking about managing privacy risk when it comes to either tools you develop internally for AI or you may purchase third-party tools.
So we're not at this time, again, we have data scientists here, we have AI to an extent here, but and AI in some form has been around for ages. What I'm struggling with more is, what are my employees doing with AI tools, right? So are they taking HR data, for instance, and using that as a prompt within ChatGPT? Are they taking confidential rates, financial information, and putting it into ChatGPT and other tools that are, they flat out say there's human review. And I'm shocked at how many smart people don't realize that all these AI tools say, hey, we have human review in here. Your information may be used. And I don't want my HR information getting out there or somebody reviewing it. So we really did struggle. I don't think it makes sense to completely ban it, and I don't think that's what people are doing. But this was one of the tougher policies that I had to put in place here in Ampersand, where I really, really struggled. And I even tried to use ChatGPT for help, and it wasn't very helpful. But again, I think the ship has sailed. I think all of us have to be leaning in. It's just making sure that you have people in the various departments helping you lean in and find the right tool. And I would say use an enterprise tool to help manage that. But Justin, it's the ship has sailed. We have to all be leaning in and working with this. Just, I think, security and privacy's job to look in and see what tools are people using and how are they using it.
Where do you think AI should sit in a company? Should be itself? Because I'm advising companies and it's a very much a committee approach, but without a single person who is actually responsible, a committee just doesn't seem like that will work without someone being responsible.
So again, we did build the committee method too. So we had a compliance committee. The compliance committee is me, the CTO, and our IT and security person. And we do work well together, and we've made decisions as a group. And I think it's very helpful to, bounce ideas off of people. I haven't seen anybody not use the committee method. So I'm actually curious to hear from you. Have you seen anybody have one person be in charge?
Not yet. Most of the approaches I've seen is committee, but then when you get down to putting together budget, does it sit in, does it sit with legal? Does it sit with privacy, security? That's some of the other discussions that companies are having.
Well, the reality is, right, we have existing policies that already drive a lot of these decisions. So procurement, if legal wanted an AI tool, right, it would hit my budget. But the question, can we use the AI tool, again, would go back to this committee, because I would want my security person to come in and say, okay, this is okay from a security perspective when it's touching our systems. I would want privacy to chime in, obviously. What are the privacy implications? So I think it's a committee, but then it goes back to some of the old documents that we have, policies, again, we have in place. So you're not reinventing the wheel.
I guess what's become clear to me in not just AI, but other discussions, that there is a clear alignment of interest in a lot of areas when it comes to data between privacy, security, and legal. Those 3 departments seem to be very much with common interests and values with data. And for a lot of companies, it's like an aha moment. Oh, we are all allies. We need to work together. And that seems to be an approach I'm seeing pretty regularly.
Absolutely. I'm curious now to ask you, like, are you guys seeing, and this is what we're doing, we're approving a case by case use of AI. And I don't know how much longer we could do that, but I'm wondering what you guys are seeing. Are you seeing that as well?
So I see that a lot. So then when I'm having some of these consults, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at the NIST AI risk management framework. So from my view, that's right now the best thing out there for a holistic approach that's not a case by case, because the governance aspect of it really requires that an organization figure out, how do we prioritize this risk? What is our risk appetite for this? And coming up with that, then once you do that, now you get into how different use cases might fit into your overall AI risk management standpoint.
I love that. And I will go look at that right after this. Again, I have to tell you, this has been very overwhelming with the AI and all the guidance coming out. So I think that's another day.
We'll be
Another job.
happy to. We'll be happy to send you the AI presentation Jody and I did last week if it will further your understanding, because it was all about NIST.
Thank you. I would love that.
I was going to add, what I'm seeing is a combo. Some are still doing case by case. Some are trying to create a policy where it's not exactly case by case. However, very similar to privacy, where there's privacy assessments. Now people are trying to do AI assessments, which would then come back to case by case. So imagine your committee, here's some new idea that you have. You would run it through the AI assessment, and people are using the same privacy tools to be able to do that. In some cases, some of the software already has templates that are able to do or customize, and you're able to do the same thing. So that's where I'm seeing some of the companies go.
I love that. Thank you.
Well, we ask everyone, because you know so much about privacy and security, when you are out at a cocktail party or an event, not with privacy friends, what is the best personal privacy or security tip that you would offer?
So from a security perspective, and I know this might sound strange, but putting a credit freeze and security freeze is essential. I'm friends with Miriam Wogmeister over at MoFo, and she had told me that early on in my career, like, just make sure everybody in your family has that in place. And what that does is prevent fraud on your account, bank account, credit card, things like that, which everybody should have, because our data's out there. Unfortunately, all our social security numbers are out there. So that's one. For me, the bigger struggle that I've had personally is I have 3 kids, and trying to keep up with the privacy and security, just how to manage the apps that they're using has been really hard. Just on a personal note, my daughter, who at the time was 10, had somebody drop an inappropriate picture on her phone while we were out on the street. She wasn't with me, through AirDrop, and I realized that she had AirDrop set to everybody being able to send her pictures. And here I am, I'm a privacy person. This is my job, and I missed that. So just looking at your kids' phones, talking to them, making sure that there's settings on their devices and their apps are set to the most private is just really important. It's a scary world out there, and that to me is the number one area that I'm really looking at.
That's a really great tip. And it is super scary as parents ourselves.
Yes. In our home, we believe in a full surveillance state when it comes to our children.
Justin, I struggle with that because I do want to give my kids privacy, right? So I do want them to be able to feel comfortable around me. But again, another podcast. What do you do? I don't know. I don't know what the right line is here.
We don't actually have access to all of the information. So your statement makes it sound like we do, and we don't.
Yes, but
we have monitoring tools that would flag a inappropriate thing, which is super different from, I know everything that's specifically on your phone. I couldn't tell you every text that she sent unless I opened the phone, but it's trying to create those boundaries and have apps and tools to monitor, just like an organization would have a tool to monitor that was an inappropriate email, or you shared confidential information in an email. The monitoring tools are going to be very similar.
Tied to that, Jody, what, talking about employee monitoring, I mean, one of the things that I always say is that if you tell your employees, hey, I need to keep my network secure, I will be monitoring you, I think that actually starts getting employees mindful of like, okay, so there's certain things I really shouldn't be doing. Well, hopefully it makes people think through and say, oh, I shouldn't be doing these things. I would say the same thing about kids, right? It's the same thing I would take back and say, hey, kids, I'm monitoring you. I'm watching everything you're doing. So maybe that'll make them stop and think, oh, mom's watching. Maybe I shouldn't do A, B, and C.
Conversations are critical. That's you have to be able to talk to your kids and explain why this is a risk, why you're doing it. And I like the approach that you've just shared. So thank you for sharing multiple tips.
Sure.
So when you're not serving as a CPO and thinking about all things privacy, what do you like to do for fun?
Sure. So I love food. I like going out and trying new things. So I know all the best ice cream places in New York City. If you ever head over here, I could definitely make a couple of recommendations. So that's my favorite thing to do. And unfortunately, I think my husband and I have run out of places to go to. So there's nothing new here for us ice cream wise. So we may need to leave New York City and try somewhere new. But that's definitely one of my favorite things to do is food, trying new restaurants, new foods, whether it's a local Chinese food place or we have a Himalayan place down the block from us. We're so lucky here in the city to be able to try new things. So that's my favorite thing to do.
It sounds delicious.
It is.
If people would like to learn more about which ice cream places to go to or also about privacy, where should we send them to connect and learn more?
So I follow Eater, but I'm also on Google Maps. If you look up Noga Rosenthal, you could see I've reviewed a bunch of ice cream places, so you could start there.
Super fun. Well, Noga, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing all of your great insight and wisdom. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to the She Said Privacy, He Said Security podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes and check us out on LinkedIn. See you next time.